Okay, Pete, you got it.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the show. This is New York Pete with my co host, oh,
Ah,
uh,
ah.
Tipsy Toaster, Chris Moore.
Hello,
And
everyone.
today is actually a special episode. This is a tribute to the beloved Richard Hatch, Captain Apollo of Battlestar Galactica. And so, Chris, we have a bunch of great background information, stories, pictures, some, a lot of shared moments that we're going to put out and share with you guys. We have a special guest. Uh, Dave Kerin is with us as well, and he got to know Richard pretty well, and he's going to share a lot of his personal stories and experiences with Rich over the years. And so, Chris, I know you had a couple of things that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, so excuse me. We would put together a little, I guess, a slideshow would be an easy way of saying it, for Richard to kind of remember his contributions in the movie and television show. Now, these aren't a list of all of the shows he's been on, but it would be kind of nice to see all of the shows other than Battlestar Galactica that he was on. And when you go and check, it's really a lot. So kind of put something a little bit together. We'll go ahead and kick it over and take a kind of moment to remember him.
Well, Chris, you know,
A
it's
lot of
it's
shows.
sometimes yeah, and there's a few others. Obviously, he's done other things. We showcased a few, and we have some fans with us tonight, and that are watching live, and we welcome everyone. It's always sad when we lose anyone that means anything to us, that we look up to. And one of the curious things that I've heard a lot about meeting Richard Hatch, I never had the pleasure of. I missed a couple. I missed him a couple of times, going to conventions that he was supposed to be there. I couldn't make one, and he couldn't make the other. But I know that you, Chris, you met him, and Dave, who's with us here today, he's going to tell us his personal stories. He got to know him a little bit better. But this is a loss. But today we're going to actually celebrate his memory as well. I know that we're keeping the faith just like he did, like he would want us to. So I think, Chris, we should toast to the memory of Richard Hatch, Captain Apollo. May your memory be eternal. He's too rich.
It's Rich, and to the fans.
Chris, we said that we're gonna celebrate his memory, right? So this is a little bit of we're mixing a lot of emotions, right? Because he was the tip of the spear, right? So Richard Hatch was at the forefront of keeping Battlestar Galactica alive, and we're big fans, and we wanted to share some pictures. We asked some of the fans to share their encounters, and many of them did. So I know that tonight we have George Zuvalos, filmmaker, who was with us, actor filmmaker, who was with us not too long ago. So thank you for being with us live. And we have other supporters, fans, Mike Russo, Alan, Christopher Pavlov, Christopher Cox, Christopher Marcus Pavlov, yes, Eric, and Bobby. Let's see, there's Marcelo Espinoza and Nicholas Whaley. Okay, so Marcelo Arias Espinoza, welcome to the show. We're going to be doing a special interview with him in a couple of hopefully soon, right? In a few
Yes.
programs from now, we have a special interview with him. And so, with
And
that said,
and he did something special for fans also. So
yes, so
we'll see that then. But
yeah,
I guess
there's some good stuff.
we asked for fans to send in some photos, so we got some fan photos, and we got some stories behind them. So we're gonna kind of take turns going through these and kind of talk about them. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat tonight for some reason. All right, so first up, this is from Sean. Sean's runs Battlestar Galactica message. Wow, what the heck's the name of it? I really just flew my mind. Battlestar Galactica bulletin board, I think is what it is.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, on Facebook. That's right.
Yep, on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
So this is he sent us this photo, and it says the autograph on the left is signed my copy of Armageddon at the 20th Yarn anniversary. Autograph on the right was from 15 Yarn reunion. I was starstruck the first time I met him in '93. I didn't know what to say. I noticed he was writing left-handed and said something stupid like, "So you really are left-handed." I wanted to die. Oh, he was great, and actually offered that being left-handed did cause some costume issues with his holster. So he was he was really kind of neat to meet him and talk about that. So a really nice photo. It's always good to have. I only got a couple of autographs from him, but the book piece would be something. And that's another book we really need to look at too. A couple of his books that he did.
Yep. And this is from another fan. Boone is the name. Chris, do you know if that's the first or last name? Because I couldn't see it on my monitor. Okay, so Mr. Boone, thanks for contributing. He was telling us that after 4 years of on and off work, I finished my classic Centurion costume for Galacticon 3 on 5/24/2013. First stop was Richard's table. Photo number 1. It was the first time I met him. He He was wonderful to talk to. It was clear he was there for the fans and enjoyed Battlestar Galactica and its community just as much as the fans. Later, I donned my full Centurion costume for the second time, and it was the first time in public, all dressed, and nervously crossing a skyway from the hotel towards the convention center, I happened to cross paths with the lowly human Captain Apollo himself. Richard spotted me on the way back to his hotel room and changed his course towards me. He complimented me over and over on my costume and said we had to get a photo. That's the second that we have up. And the first photo ever requested with me, of many, while in costume, was with none other than Richard Apollo. The chances were unbelievable. You can't see, but under the helmet, I had the biggest smile imaginable. Richard was so thoughtful and kind and is greatly missed. Thank you for sharing that. Great pictures and great story. So yeah, this is what he was like. Sometimes it's said that meeting your hero can be a disappointment, but everyone that I know has said that meeting Richard Hatch is the real deal. He's really, really nice guy, and I'm always happy to hear stories like that. Sometimes you do encounter people that you look up to, that you reminisce about, and sometimes they are, and that's great. So what else? I think we have a couple others. Oh yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah,
Someone that we know well.
This is Eric Engler. He's a friend of ours. We met on a number of occasions and exchanged stuff back and forth, and go to Dragon Con with him a couple of times. Pardon me. This photo was taken on September 2nd, 2016 at 2:06 p.m. outside of the Hyatt Centennial at Dragon Con. Richard took a minute after his panel to take photos with me, a fan in cosplay. Little did he know that his talk and his photo after would change this fan's life forever. Because of Richard, I bring it every day because someone is counting on me. I was going to tell him in 2017, but never got to. I will keep the faith.
Nice story. Thanks for sharing that, Eric. This is from John Ketter. One of my favorite Battlestar Galactica geek out moments actually happened by accident at a Star Trek convention in Las Vegas. I was walking around the peripheral areas to try to meet some of the non-main cast members, and my buddy nudges me and points just a few feet next to me, Richard Hatch and Herb Jefferson Jr. I like Star Trek, but I love original Battlestar Galactica. I was able to have a 20-minute conversation or so with the two of them, and they treated me like I was the only person in the room. Great experience. I met both of them again at Galacticon 3 in Houston 2013 and got them to sign the picture from the Star Trek convention. Great experience. Wow, nice one.
That's
great
cool.
Picture. Yeah.
That's a definite memory.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good.
This one's a two-parter. This one's a good one.
Yes. Yeah. Take that one, Chris.
I forgot to put his name down. Oh, man. I'm so sorry. I have to look it back up. I'll get it before the end of the show. That was my fault. I put it down. I was putting it down our sheets and I didn't get it done. Anyways, so this is a long one. So I ran into him at the Marriott elevators after Dragon Con parade. He was very big at Dragon Con, by the way. He was always there. This was one of my favorite in 2008. It was the year I put together my Cylon costume. Well, there seems to be a theme here.
Oh, don't get a big head now.
I wore it for the first time. It was falling apart. I had been in good. Oh, I know who this is now. Fall apart had been good for 12 hours by the time this picture was taken. This is me, Richard, and Caprica 6 that I've never seen again. And the second picture, we'll pull that one over. This was funny. The second picture, he said he wanted to be taller than a Cylon, so he grabbed a chair and stood in it. I ran into him by the Marriott elevators for the Dragon Con parade. I don't remember what year it was, but he was also the year that he was riding in the Cylon Raider. There was actually a little motorized Raider, which was really neat, but it broke down halfway through the show, or halfway through the parade. He jumped out and walked the rest of the day while playing catch up with the other people in the pyramid costumes, or whatever they want to call that in the new series. It was about 90 degrees or so outside. He was drenched in sweat by the time the parade ended. And I was super dehydrated, but some people were handing out water at the end of the parade. I couldn't actually drink them because I was carrying too much costume stuff. So he headed back to my room in the Marriott, and I got in the elevator. He's like one little drip of sweat on his forehead, and I was like stepped out of a swimming pool. He offered to hold my helmet and gloves, so I chugged down the water. He was a really good guy. There was very few celebrities out there. I was upset when he died. He was the top of the list. Also, there was a time he kicked my ass during thumb wrestling. I was wearing hockey gloves at the time, so my thumb only went halfway up, but I let him win anyways.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's John Gillespie. He's a friend of mine also from Dragon Con. And there's no story to this one, so.
Christopher Cox is actually on live. However, Mr. Boone is Mr. John Boone. So we saw him earlier, but Chris is actually on. So hey Chris, if you have anything you want to add real quick on your picture, give us just, if you can type that real quick, we're gonna add that in. Meantime, Lola's on. Thank you for coming on. Terry Devlin, Dan Toombs is also watching. So welcome, guys. We're doing the tribute to Richard Hatch. And all right, so
Christopher Pavlov is from Australia, I believe. He's the one that missed last week. He sent me a text.
Oh, that's outstanding. Well, yeah, he's with us. Thanks for joining. And all right, so you know what? I think it's time to actually do our traditional toast to the fans, Chris, and then let's bring on our special guest. So
yes,
we always, right, as part of our tradition here on IFB.
I'm ready now.
Right? All right, you ready? IFB, right? Interfleet Broadcasting. We have our own little, tradition. So take it away, Chris.
All right, we just like to thank all the fans, and the only thing that keeps this thing going, just like Richard says, to keep the faith. But the fans fuel the fleet. If it wasn't for you, the fleet would die. So let's not let the fleet die. Let's keep it going. So fans fuel the fleet. To the fans.
To the fans. All right. Another beer. Hang on. All right, Chris, go get that beer, man. So in the meantime, we're really happy to have with us tonight someone that we got to know through our BSG wandering around the galaxies. We met Dave. So Dave Kerin, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. You brought a lot of great stuff. So if you want to give a little background, we'd appreciate you kind of setting the stage, because we're going to do a deep dive into some of your work and some of your, Richard Hatch stuff.
Okay, sure. And I don't know if he's back from the beer yet, because I was calling that up too. I didn't know if it would do too much interference to have it live and be watching this too.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm glad you guys reached out. I know when you said before you had like writer and costume designer, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be as interesting as any of that. So I apologize ahead of time. But yeah, I just when the show came on, I was in the 5th grade. And for whatever reason, the show really stuck with me. And even as a kid, Richard Hatch as Captain Apollo was like the hero, and everybody loves Star Wars for whatever reason. Battlestar was more for me. And I was just thinking today, back since I was in the 5th grade, reminded me of a story our school did where it was Dress as Your Hero Day. And I'm sure they assumed it would be historical figures. But my friend and I were really into Battlestar Galactica. We had our moms dye our jean jackets brown, and we did the duct tape for the buckles and everything. And my hair was lighter then, and my friend's hair was very dark. So, of course, someone goes, well, you're Apollo, talking to him, and you're Starbuck, looking at me. And I remember saying to the class, like, no, I am Apollo. He is Starbuck. And being left-handed was also the thing that allowed me to tie into that as well. but yeah, ever since then, for whatever reason, the show always stuck with me. Always loved science fiction stuff. At one point, I loved watching special effects in movies, especially miniature effects. I'd watch Battlestar and Buck Rogers, and I'd think about how they used to use like composite different shots together. So that was always in my mind. And around the time like CG started developing, show like Babylon 5 came out, and that was something I knew I wanted to get into. So I started learning that software, got into television motion graphics work, and part of what kept me learning stuff is I would look at something, say like a 3D software, and I go, I need to make a Viper fly from here to there. How do I do it? And that helped me learn the software and give me more inspiration to play around doing Battlestar stuff. And actually doing that and starting with the online community is what led me to eventually getting to work with Richard. I was not involved in the Second Coming trailer, but the one he started right after that with Great War of Magellan. And I got into that. Well, online I became friends with the webmaster that worked with Richard on his websites, and we would email back and forth. I'd send him renderings I did, and we just had a good conversational relationship there. And he's like, hey, Richard's doing something new. I'm going to maybe send him some of your stuff if he needs help. Which, of course, at that point, I was like, oh my God, yeah, that would be fantastic to do. And that's how that got started. I think it was after a little bit, Michael, who was the guy that ran the websites, and he goes, oh, hey, by the way, I remember being at work getting this email. He goes, oh, Richard's probably going to try to call you, which there are so many things in knowing him. It threw me back to being 10-year-old Dave again in 5th grade going, wait, Captain Apollo is going to be actually calling me. So that's kind of how I got the start into that and everything. And that was for his Great War of Magellan project that he was picking up after, the Battlestar, the Second Coming trailer didn't come around. So he started his own because it was his own idea, as opposed to being owned by Universal or something like that he could pursue. Yeah.
Wow.
And
good.
Yeah, it was definitely surprising and fun little path going down that.
So, Dave, do you remember meeting him for the first time? It was at a convention, I assume.
Yes. Well, meeting him first, there was meeting him and then meeting him after working with him. I mean, probably the first time meeting him was I was out of the 15 Yarn reunion in Los Angeles, which was the one that it was a great convention to be at, but then stories of the hotel sending people away because they didn't want sci-fi fans or whatever. So met him there. And it's funny, when you showed the picture in the tribute from TJ Hooker, I remember him in that because it was Apollo and Captain Kirk. But then I asked him some TV roles if he preferred, because he would start playing some of the bad guys, like in that TJ Hooker episode, and I don't know, I kind of got the feeling like, well, because he was always the hero and then playing the villain, he goes, you get to do different things as a villain, and stuff. And I remember him asking too at the time, like, what was like to work with Peter Ustinov and Charlie Chan and The Curse of the Dragon Queen, because I always loved Peter Ustinov, and he had just a great story of like Peter Ustinov's sense of humor and learning from him and everything. But then the other time, probably first like really meeting, I know I was at work the one night, started over a phone call, because then he left a message for me, to do the first talk, and then I left me his phone number. So the station I worked at, we had a 10 o'clock news. So after we did the stuff for it, I remember going into the one edit bay, and I told the people, like, I have to go call Captain Apollo right now. I'll be back, and I need to be alone and quiet because this is going to be nervous and awkward. So we called or talked, say like my sketches that I sent or the designs I did. Let's start trading some ideas. We'll talk more. And it was, I don't even remember everything from that other than I came out like, wow, that was that first outside communication from going up to him at a table or something like that.
Right.
And then I started doing sketches for him. I'd actually fax things back and forth, like some of the spaceships designed for Great War of Magellan. And he'd call often, and it was the first time I got home and there was a voicemail on my machine from Richard Hatch, was like all these little surreal moments, where I got to be comfortable being able to communicate back and forth. We'd share ideas, but then there's always that little 10-year-old part of me in my mind that remembers this is Captain Apollo. But he's always kind and generous. And the first time we actually met, he would often come into a convention in Columbus, Ohio, which was called MarCon. I think it was back. I think it might still be going on. I'm not sure. And my wife and I drove down where we're from. It's like about a 4-hour drive. And we're like, let's get together, have some dinner. So my wife and I are walking around, met up with him, his girlfriend Sophie at the time. And he was like, well, let's go get some food. And we walked across, I don't remember if it was a TGI Fridays or something like that. And it was really nice. It was just the four of us. We got to sit down. We got to talk about things, even just about jobs, that we've done in the past. And what I was talking to my wife about it today is we're doing this, and our kids were over for Sunday dinner. And even she was saying how in that sit down conversation, he would ask her, like, what do you do for a living? And, she does market research. And she said how genuinely he was interested in knowing. And then we started talking about shows. And she's like, I remember mentioning the Twilight Zone and how good that show was. And she's like, and Richard it's like, it like sparked him a little bit where he's like, what do you like about it? What are the things that really draw you into that? What are your favorites? It was just really nice that he could have been, well, everybody says how warm and generous he was, which was true. It's like he didn't have to spend the extra time with us. I could have just been somebody there to send him spaceship CGI renderings, and he could have had nothing to do with it, but he was just kind and generous with it. And I tell the one story when we were there, and it was a moment of breaking down Captain Apollo and Richard Hatch, and we were laughing about it today, talking about it, where he's eating these chicken wings and stuff. And as he's eating, and I'm still balanced between awe that, like, this is Apollo, but then Hatch, and the sauce drips down. He's like, oh no, and he grabs, I have a napkin, I have a prop. And he's like, oh man, my shirt, everything. And that was one of the things that like broke me into like, okay, this is, my hero spilling sauce down his shirt, but also very humanizing. And it kind of helped break a mental ice for me and get me beyond that little bit of awe and everything with it. So that was really nice. And we did a couple others. Like if he would come in to something around the Pittsburgh area, I'd usually try to drive out and get together with him. And I know there's one, maybe it was Cincinnati, and I think he was showing the Great War of Magellan trailer at the time. And it was going to be in one of the rooms. And I must have been late getting there because I'm walking down. I think I got a bagel and I had my coffee in hand. And everybody must have been in the room because I'm walking. All of a sudden, this guy comes towards me with this long hair. He's like, "Are you Dave Kerin?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Come on with me." And he's like, so it was nice because then I got in the room. I didn't realize he'd started. And Richard's like, "I'm not starting this until you're here." And he introduced me and everything. And sat down and had my bagel and coffee. And it was nice where he could have stood there and been like, "Hey, this is all me." It's like he was very generous to point out anybody and everybody who would help along the way and share in that. So
hey, you mentioned a phone call. We actually have one of the recordings from that phone call, from a phone call.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
which I did save it because I am that person who would do that. Yeah.
We'll go ahead and play it here. Just give me 1 second to set this up.
Sure.
Awesome stuff. Great stories. So, as a matter of fact,
ready?
Okay, go with that. Go with the audio.
Hey guys, Richard Hatch wishing you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Dave, you guys are probably out having a good time. So if you get back this evening or anytime, I'll be in and out, but this evening definitely I'll be here. So get back to me and let's catch up. I want to go over a couple things with you and again, I want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and thank you so much for all your help. Bye-bye.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's how it all.
Thanks for sharing.
I mean, there were a lot of times he would call, leave messages, and like I said, we thinking about this a lot on the interviews coming up. I'm like, there were even times where like my wife, I'd be watching a movie, the answering machine, I see caller ID, I'm like, oh, it's Richard. And like, okay, I'll have to call him back. But it's like that idea of like, okay, I'll wait, I'll get hold of him later. But we also had some really nice times talking on the phone. I mean, I can't claim to know him better. There are people who are much closer to him, I'm sure. But in that period of time helping him on the Magellan project, it was nice because we get into conversations about other things. We'd like to discuss relationships and growing up and human nature, why certain people act certain ways. The work I do, I'd work with different creative directors or people, and some would just be so self-destructive in how they would act or something. So we'd always like to get into a nice conversation about that. And I remember one time I was talking to him and we started talking about like growing up, and I said, and this isn't really a bad thing on my part, but I would say how I would love to sit and draw, and anything I ever did, my mom would always be like, oh my God, Dave, that's the greatest thing ever. And even I'd be like, Mom, I know it's not the greatest thing ever. You know, I need a little more criticism or something in there. And I was telling him that and how I saw that as like, not that my mom's the best person in the world, not that it would ever be a weakness, but I'm like, I need more than you're amazing, whatever you do. It's like, thanks, Mom. I know you love me. But then his response was, he was like, wow, he goes, I was the opposite. He goes, no matter what I did, and I hope I'm remembering it right, because if someone out there goes, Richard never said that, but he was telling me he wouldn't get the compliments from his mom. Like in the things he would do, he would want to get those, but she wasn't very giving with it. So even getting the show like Battlestar Galactica or something else, it was something where he knew that wasn't going to come from her. So two different balances of how your mother would have treated you, you know, growing up, and if you have a creative kind of outlook or endeavor in life. And there's one time too, I know we called, it might have been that conversation, because it'd always be wrapped around like usually stuff where the Great War of Magellan or something we're working on. And the one night he called and I came in here to my office room here, started talking, and we might have been on for like an hour or so. And I go back in, my wife's already in bed, and she's like, well, what were you guys talking about? Was it something for the animation? I thought you were done. And I just said, no, I think he just wanted to talk, and it was nice. And he was that great kind, just as anybody who would say, like, he talked to you like you're the most important person in the world at that moment. He was great to have real conversations about things with. So yeah, he was very generous.
That's really awesome, man. That's really cool. Hey, Chris, I know that you had the pleasure of meeting him as well, and I know that it's a good time to share your story.
Yeah,
and
it's funny that Dave was talking about how he's always more interested in other people's lives. So mine was a Dragon Con. Seems like to be there's a theme here, where I was going dressed as a Cylon. Another theme here,
of course.
But so we were down in the area in Dragon Con that's called it's Autograph Row, and all the different people there for autographs. This was towards the end of the show, so there wasn't a lot of people in there, and I was like, well, there's not going to be people left, and I've been so busy with everything else that's going on, I just hadn't gotten down to Autograph Row, and I'm like, well, I just want to go down there and see who's down there, and I really hadn't paid attention to who was there, but sure enough, I walked in and there was no line, and I was like, oh, cool. So I walk in and I start walking around, and there's Richard. I was like, oh my God, it's Apollo. My daughter's with me, and she's like, who? And I'm like, oh my God, I've failed as a father. So like, this is Richard Hatch. This is Apollo from Battlestar Galactica. And she goes like, oh. I said, that's the show you like. I said, yeah, it's a show I like a lot. And then she goes, well, so let's go meet him. So I walk up his table and I go, he was looking down doing something, and I said, hi. And he's like, oh, hi. This is I'm Chris Moore. This is what I just wanted to say it's great to meet you, and I was hoping to get an autograph. And he said, oh yeah, sure. So I got some stuff here for you. You can sign stuff here, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he says, so what do you do? And he started talking to me about what I did. And I'm like, well, don't talk about me. I want to talk about you. I don't want to talk about me. But he was definitely interested in what I did, and I said, what did the show mean to you? And I was like, oh my gosh, why is he? I feel like I'm the one that's supposed to be at the Star, behind the table at the Star interview here, because he seemed like he was interviewing me the entire time. So we posed, got a couple of photos. I got a couple of the photos off the table. Just what a great guy. I just could not believe how upbeat and fun he was. And the sad thing is we didn't realize this, but this was September of 2016. Just a matter of months later, he left us. But he didn't seem like he was in any pain. He didn't seem like he was worried about himself. It was all about us, the fans, which was really interesting for somebody that, you always talk to a star, and you want to go to places like that, and we go to the fan things all the time. One of my questions I always ask each of the stars that if I get a chance to is what does science fiction mean to you, or what did the story mean to you? And most of the time it's like, well, you fans know more about it than I do, and you and you get the gist that was it just a job, or do you live this stuff? Is this something that's really interesting to you? Is this something that drives you? This drove Richard, and you could tell. And when you ask him that question, he was like, "Oh, this is great. This is what we do. It's all about. We want to get information. We want to have so much fun with this." Whereas if you interviewed some of the other people that were in the other Battlestar Galactica roles or whatever else, and I'm not going to mention names, but a lot of them were in it for a paycheck. And I'm not saying that's bad, but there are some people who enjoy science fiction and star in the movies and the TV shows, and there's some people who get a paycheck because that was something that was offered to them. And Richard lived Battlestar Galactica, and he lived science fiction, and you could tell by all his projects and how much money he would pour into things. I only got to meet him that one time, but he became a lifelong interest at my point. It's something interesting to me, something I wanted to emulate. Somebody who was, it was Captain Apollo. It was somebody who had that leadership role, and he constantly lived it in life. I'll leave it at that.
Chris, yeah. Well, you know what? We have Terry, Rick, Lee, Bradley. Thanks for tuning in and coming down to the show. Roma as well. We're here doing a Richard Hatch tribute. It's the first IFB tribute, and with us is Dave Kerin, who got to know Richard like us, as fan, and then of course we got to work with him on a whole other professional level. There's one other show, guys, that we didn't mention. Who the Frack was something that Richard was involved with. The world's first social network reality drama, and it was a reality internet show. And Michael Werhan was behind that. He produced, and he was in it as well. And if anyone hasn't seen it, it's like a gloves off, get to know Rich out there going to cons, doing his thing. And it was kind of I got to watch a whole bunch of the episodes, and yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a lot of fun. So if you haven't watched that, I thought that might be interesting just before we get into some of the other more, professional, serious, I guess, film, movie type work that Rich was also involved in. I know, Chris, there's a movie that we watched that we kind of enjoyed that some don't like so much, but we kind of liked. It was towards the end of Rich's career. I
actually got to ask a couple of questions to the. They had a thing. It's the show. The movie's called Innuendo, and it's a little edgy, little nudity and those kind of things. And there's something that you wouldn't expect a maybe a Richard Hatch thing to do, but it was really, if you look at the acting and the way it was written, it's really good. And I talked to the director for that show and asked him, so this was pretty much Richard's last role, and he was, what was it like, or how did he handle this? He said it was a trooper all the way to the end. He says he would step away and he would get sick, but he would come back and act like nothing was wrong, and he just kept plugging away. That was they did a Twitch live stream of the show, which was really good. But the Great War of Magellan, which Dave worked on, is I one of these things is like, it's just a second coming, and everything else is, why did we stop there? Why did we stop at just a trailer? This has a decent storyline to it. If you get a chance, there's a making of on the story of Magellan, the Great War of Magellan, online on Facebook. I wish we could play those kind of things, but we will get copyright striked. We already experienced that one today. So, but as long as we own this, we were working with the person who owns it. There was audio behind one. But Dave, you've got some great. I've got some photo. This you were talking drawings earlier about and this one's upside down. I'm sorry.
Or
that was one. Stand on our heads, but
yeah. I mean, doing these, I remember because after I started doing it, we were on vacation, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. I get to sit and draw spaceships, and I'm going to send them off. And this is one where I kind of envisioned that kind of wing thing can like rotate, I guess kind of like what a B-wing does in Star Wars. So it could be vertical and horizontal. I know I built that one for it. I don't know how much it got used because I did that. I did a few different designs. But then the one I liked, and I remember sending to him, and he's like, oh, we really like this. We might use it as the 𝗧𝗛𝗏 fighter, which was the main bad guy fighter and everything. And those were like that one right there. And it was fun. It's like I just kind of had the image in my head. It kind of reminded me of like a cool classic Star Wars-y Battlestar kind of spaceship and everything, but I like the black and the red in there. And so, just doing it, I'm thinking I'm coming on new, contributing what little things I can. And he's like, cool, we talked it over, and that's going to be the new bad guy fighter. I'm like, awesome. So
actually, I have just a quick snippet of that too. I think this is it. Tell me if I'm wrong, though. I mean, there we go.
Oh, yeah. So some of the animations we and what's fun in like that animation there is part of a larger animation of things. I think this is about the same time too, where this was going on was when the new Battlestar was coming out, and the way they did their special effects played a lot of like with camera moves and everything. So trying to learn that. I'm not a super professional 3D person, but I would try to look and emulate and pick things up. And one quick Richard story that sticks with me to this day, and I share with people in my job, is I would work on these animations. And I remember that one is part of a big long sequence, and I'd send to him, I'm like, all right, this is me, this is pushing it, he's going to love this. And so I send it to him, and I get the email back. He goes, hey, I really like it. I'm like, good. He goes, but I'm thinking, like, so, and you get that like deflated feeling where you think you did something that's so great. It's like, and he gave suggestions of if we do this and this and this. I'm like, all right, and we talked about it. He goes, well, here's what I'm seeing. And, I'm keeping my best, excited for it. Where really I feel like I threw all my best effort into this. And I went in and I started working in all the stuff that he did. And then after I finished it and I saw it again, I'm like, it's better. Criticism's always a tough thing for anybody to handle. If you're working on something, some criticism, you'll always get a criticism from someone out there. You're like, they don't know what they're talking about. But this is one where you swallow your pride, you take the criticism and you work with it, and you realize he pushed you, like I would have stopped here, and he pushed me further than I would have gone myself, which is how you learn and you do things. And I'm lucky to work with people and TV graphics and design, and I share that story with anybody I work with and just say, hey, if I'm giving you advice, hopefully you take it well, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong on it. So just explain to me why I'm wrong. I definitely the wrong opinions here or there. But no, but it was a big life lesson for me that carries through to this day.
Yeah, we've got a couple more quick shots here. This is you can talk about this one here. I'll let it loop.
So Dave, this was a 2005 project, and officially you were the digital artist for the Great War of Magellan, which was directed and written by Richard Hatch. So what what was your take on the story itself? Like how was, give us a little bit more of Richard's vision on this project. Obviously it's dated 2005, but I'm sure they would have worked on it at least a year before. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, the one thing how it never went, you're saying like, why didn't it move forward? And as we did work on it for a long time, and I started to realize something about Richard, he, at least from my perspective, he seemed to love that creative part of building it. And then everything he'd see, he would want to be like, well, maybe if we change this a little bit, maybe if we change this. Even I was to the point like, you need to get out and start selling it. You need to do this. And as he had different projects going on, so I'm not sure on like the selling process of it, like what all was taking place with it. But I know it was an epic scope. Like if you took some of, there was some Mad Max feel to it. There was some Star Wars feel to it. And one clip there's sword fighting going on. So it kind of spanned genres or imagery from different types of films like that. And he had a lot of people working with it. Remember, I can't remember the name right now. The one guy from Babylon 5. He had a lot of people he's friends with who'd always be involved and help out. And I know there are other digital artists on it, like Ken Thompson, who worked with him on Second Coming, Battlestar Second Coming. Guy Mike McAdams, I think his name was. And this was early days where we were all separate, but I would email back and forth with them for some things, and there were no Zoom calls back in that day, so it was a little harder to communicate back and forth. But I don't know. I don't think, I was never involved on the editing side of it, so I'm not sure how much more was done beyond a trailer or anything like that. But it would have been nice to see like a full pilot episode or something put together. But if there was anything like that,
it was billed as a space opera. Do you know anything about? Do you have like a little bit of background on the story itself?
It's been a long time. Aside from it would be based around the different clans of warriors, and then this 𝗧𝗛𝗓 race would come in, and almost like there's one shot, I didn't do it, but it's from the trailer. I think it was Tobias Richter did it, and just how they would swarm through. And I think that visual, which if it's in the trailer, but like you said, you can't play it, but it is out there, and it just kind of said how they would swarm out and just take over planets and civilizations and worlds. And so you were down to that story of humans having to band together to fight the overwhelming odds, which is a very classic story to do, but I think that would come down to what the basis of that was right there. But it would have been interesting. I mean, there was so much to it that even as he would explain to me, I was working on my portions of it, and even I would be trying to piece together, but until, it was so epic, it was even hard for me to get a solid grasp on everything that would have been in it. And I was so key focused on whatever portions I was actually animating for it and everything. But.
So this was, do you know if it was supposed to be an actual movie that maybe turns into a series, or was it meant to be designed as a series, as a pilot for a TV show?
I believe it was being pitched for something along the lines of a TV show. Especially in that time, it seemed to have more, I'm sure anything would have been on the table for it. But he even had the idea of like multimedia realms. I know there was then an interactive game that was coming out with it, like not a board game. There's
a role-playing game.
Yeah. So he was looking for those different things and how to do it. And he was talking about even the different multimedia ways where that time things were starting online where, you could do different avenues beside the straightforward television avenue or a movie avenue or something like that. And I think part of what drew attention away is he did start getting involved in a lot of other things like that and productions that came up, which was awesome, but then those things moved forward, and Magellan unfortunately didn't really move much beyond that phase of it.
Kind of like the Second Coming was the same thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
more or less.
It was just
Yeah.
not picked up by Hollywood, so it was like they just left it at that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But,
Ray and Eric are watching with us, guys. They just came on a little bit, so welcome, guys. Thanks for tuning in to the Richard Hatch tribute. We're just talking about Great War Magellan. We're here with Dave Kerin as our special guest. He was a digital artist on the project, got to know Richard Hatch on a personal level and work with him professionally. And so we're lucky to have him on board, and we're just reminiscing. So, yeah, like I had said earlier on, it's kind of cool when you get to meet someone that, you've kind of looked up to. And, we grew up, all three of us grew up watching Battlestar Galactica as kids. And then, you finally get to meet someone. And in your case, Dave, you got to work with the guy. And so that's way cool. You get to meet and, interact with someone. You'd said you'd been out to dinners, and done some presentations and some stuff at cons where you panels and things with them. And that's way cool, so that's not everybody's not the same. And, as much as some try, some don't. And, I guess Rich was the real deal. So that's really cool to know about him.
And one nice thing, like, I'm sorry, where Chris mentioned earlier, like when you were talking to him at the convention, that he would start asking you, or he would talk about things, and you could tell that he really was, he wasn't just the superficial actor being like, it was a job, I don't remember. He obviously didn't.
You get that answer sometimes too.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. But
from the other actors.
Definitely. But the last time I saw him was, I think, in 2013. He was in Pittsburgh for a convention, and I threw out like, hey, if you want to get together, I don't know if you wanted, because they were getting ready for the 35th anniversary. And I don't know if I first brought it up, but we said, why don't we get together, put up a green screen, get a camera, a mic, and we could just record some interview questions or something like that. And he said, yeah, it sounds good. Met him out there, got some dinner, got some coffee at Starbucks, which I thought was fun and ironic. And then we're like, all right, let's go shoot. My one friend, Rich, who worked with him, he's my age and big Battlestar fan. I'm like, you want to come help and hang out? And so we set up, we're doing it. And he's like, all right, just throw me questions. Because I don't know why I didn't think of asking him, like writing down questions to ask beforehand. So that was just us saying like, oh, what do you think about, say if I throw out a question of what was, your first experience walking on the set or getting cast in the new show. And I know one was, what were your feelings of going from pushing so hard for Second Coming to happen, and then the new series and getting into that. So, but whatever question we gave him, he's like, oh, that's good. And he would start going on for just minutes on end and talking about the people he met, the relations, how the stories of humanity come together in both series. It was just nice. You could throw him the simplest question to start with, and he would roll with it. And just I think I sent you links to those. I still have the raw green screen we shot of him, and it was great.
Cool to see.
Yeah. I know. I think I have that because shouldn't be copyright with that.
No, that's not. You filmed it, so you're good. What we get hit on is we played a video last week that had a song in it. It was, and that's what they found that song in there. But
yeah, it's amazing what they find.
It's the YouTube thing. Even sharing some YouTube stuff will. Oops, sorry. We'll get you sometimes.
Yeah.
Whatever's on the YouTube channel, but if you filmed it, then we're good.
Yeah.
Just like I couldn't bring them all in, but you what was your, I guess, role in the videotaping or the taping of the 35th anniversary? There was a lot of video online inside the YouTube channels that have that.
Yeah, because I know on I have like a YouTube page where I've just thrown stuff from the years. I sent it to, who was it, Jerry Sotos? I'm thinking that's the name of who it was, because he was editing it together. And I even remember he said, "Oh, this is great because I've been wanting to get HD footage of Richard Hatch for a long time talking about this." And so I don't think it coordinated with him. We just kind of, I knew I had the equipment that we could do it, and I threw it out there to him if he wanted to get together and talk about that. And yeah, we just started going on. I think we recorded almost an hour's worth, and but it wasn't in any like official thing. Like, we're definitely doing it for this. It was like we had the opportunity to be together, had time after he was done with the convention to do it, and just kind of got together and did it. I'm glad it got to be used then for the convention and other things, and just a nice way to. I like it because it's a nice, honest way to hear him just go on and talk about it. And he'd go on and he's like, "All right, I think that's enough on that one. What's the next question?" And we move on to something else. But yeah. And then it was late, and I drove him back to the hotel after that. Although I know Dirk Benedict was in that convention too, and I was hoping he'd get him. And after we did it, we're halfway through, and at some point he's like, "I should have gotten Dirk to come out and do this too, just for the chance to both sit down." But I'm like, "Oh, that would have been great." And of course, while he was mentioning it before we left, I didn't want to push it because they were still, again, reverting to that 10-year-old. I'm like, "Oh my God, get Dirk Benedict to come do this too." It's like if I had Apollo and Starbuck riding around in my orange Dodge Caliber, it's like that alone is just something mind-blowing. And at one convention, yeah, we went to dinner. I remember because I had a Pontiac Sunfire, and I forget who else went with us. We're like, "Let's go get some dinner." He's like, "I'll sit in the back." And I felt so bad. So like, all right, pull a chair up, and he's climbing in the back seat of my two-door Pontiac Sunfire. And yeah, it was just, it was always a really good time.
Here's a couple of those interview segments. I have actually the ability to bring them up. I don't know about the audio, but we'll bring up the couple of those interview segments. Let me switch the audio on.
Yeah, because some I added background. I think these are the ones where I added background to it.
You have levels and sound is fine?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good. And lights are on, right?
I don't know why I didn't jump in the screen with him at some point to get my image in there with him.
It's hard to believe that Battlestar Galactica debuted some 35 years ago. And when I have to think back about, where I was at that time, it was such an extraordinary time of change for me, because all actors want to make it in this business. We all want to, to find that signature role, something that will kind of put us out there in the front where people begin to recognize us. And Battlestar, for me, became that show for me. And I had no idea that Battlestar would end up being that show for me, because as much as I love science fiction, I had said no to being on the show when they asked me, to come out and audition for it, because I thought it was going to be another Star Wars ripoff type thing, and I had no idea what the story was about, the mythology was about. And when I got a chance to read the script, see all this incredible Ralph McQuarrie art, I was absolutely blown away by all these amazing images and that very sophisticated, idealistic actor, Richard.
So if you want to see the rest of that, it is on.
Thanks for sharing that. That's Dave. That was one of your interviews that you did exclusive, right? You took Rich down to a location and you actually filmed that, and that's one of. And I think it's like one of 7, I believe. And I'm going to admit to you, I hadn't seen those prior to us talking about it. I just didn't know they were there, and I was blown away. I'm so glad I got to see them. I actually binge watched all of them one after the other, and I was like, wow, this is great stuff, man. So thanks for putting that out there. And
into those little chunks that I kind of put on the head, like what the topics are and everything, but just about everything except for some pauses in between questions are all there.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. And that's on your website, right? On your website or your YouTube?
YouTube.
YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay. And how does anybody find that? Okay. Yeah, Dave,
Oh,
you said
yeah, youtube.com/David Kerin, DAVIDKERIN. And I think I have a playlist on the,
Yes. You have
I
a
think it's in a
playlist.
playlist on the main page. It's kind of a YouTube page where I've just thrown a bunch of stuff I've done from, well, I'd say short number of years, but it's actually been over 20 years. Sheesh. But yeah,
Don't you feel old when you say that? I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, I remember
they're
watching. Oh my gosh.
highly
Battlestar's how old?
recommended. Anybody
what
out there that that wants to watch these things, that are interested in a little bit more, you're gonna really enjoy the Richard Hatch stuff. Not to mention the rest that's up there, but in terms of us talking about Richard Hatch tonight, you got to get out, set aside a little bit of time, and just watch them all, because I was like blown away. And you guys that are watching, you all know that Chris and I are big fans. We watched the actual show when it premiered, so we grew up with this just like you did, Dave. So that stuff, man, is just primo. Love it. So thanks for putting it up, and thanks for having it there. Yeah, so everybody go out there and check it out. I mean, it's really worth your time, since we're all big fans of Galactica and Richard Hatch. But I will tell you, I had in 2004, the closest I had to meet Richard Hatch, being that he was going to come out close to where I was Icon. And it's an East Coast, was a convention that went on for decades, and it was held out at Stony Brook University. And Richard was scheduled, and if you Wikipedia it, you'll see that he's still on the guest list, but for some reason he couldn't make it. But the official Battlestar Galactica fan club that was actually in operation back then, and I think some part of it is still in existence, had a presence, and Richard went out of his way to make sure that he actually recorded a video message. So he sent a VHS tape of a message that he made exclusively for the fans and the Battlestar Galactica club that was helping him out, and was going to be there. So I was a part of that, and I got to see that. And it was really cool, because he, basically personalized his message, and he apologized profusely for not being able to be there. And I thought that was interesting. That was like, the first time back in 2004 that I had actually gotten to know maybe a little bit of, who and what he was. I mean, he canceled, right? I mean, Stars canceled. He didn't get a chance to come out, and, I'm sorry, but, he actually filmed, the little clip, and on it was the first time I got to see the Second Coming. He put the whole Second Coming on, and he actually put out a request that the classic Battlestar Galactica fans jump on board the reimagined. He asked that we support it, that he came to terms with it, and I was like, wow, this guy's pretty down to earth type of person. He could have easily held a vendetta or a grudge, and it wasn't clear where it was going to go, but he didn't. And that was my encounter with Richard Hatch, and I thought that was really kind of cool back in 2004. And one of these days, Chris, I'm going to pull up some pictures and share those on IFB, and we'll see who is in that group from the original Battlestar Galactica fan club.
But that's class. That's class. I mean,
I've
gone to
really
multiple different, cons, and people cancel out all the time. But it's class when you cancel out and you're like, oh, I can't make it. Here's my publicist statement on reason why I couldn't make it. Instead, he sent a video. That's and in that day and time, a VHS tape, which he took the time to make a recording to connect to the fans, and tell them about it. That's class. That's somebody who cares about the fans, not somebody who cares about the paycheck.
And that's why I wanted to share that. I thought it was really a little insight, at least on my humble level. I mean, you guys were lucky enough to actually meet him, and I just couldn't make it to some of the other shows. I mean, I know that he'd come out to Comic-Con after that, and I didn't get to see him. That's one of the few that I didn't make, being that it's in my backyard. But great guy, and he's one of the biggest proponents with keeping Battlestar Galactica alive. Never mind the fans. I mean, the fans are the ones that are obviously behind everything. But
Right.
he was, he was big into it, so that was great. I just thought that was interesting on his part that he went out of his way.
And for him too, like, because I know, as you know, all us original Battlestar Galactica or fans of the original show, when the new one came out, it was hard. It was different. It wasn't what we were expecting. And since we were working on this, then after the miniseries aired, I remember talking to him, and I said, and he wanted to know what I thought of it, and then he was talking about, because he put so much work into Battlestar: The Second Coming and bringing the show back, and to feel like you've done all this to almost like grow this interest, and then it's taken. He was very disheartened at that moment. He was very down by it. Even talking like they're wearing suits and ties. I don't get it. Why are they doing this? Where's the epic story? So he could have easily been standoffish, been bitter about it. And I wasn't at the one convention, but where Ron Moore came to it, and I remember hearing stories like fans were, I don't know if they were booing or whatever, but he was the one that stood up and said, no, this guy is our guest. We're here to hear him out. He had the chance to do it, did it differently than we would, but it shows what a bigger person, and so that person that was always like the Captain Apollo who would do the right thing, even if it was a difficult thing to do, where the real person had a lot of those same attributes, whereas like, hey, cool, my childhood hero still stands for those things in real life that he would have done. And it actually ended up being a great gift to him. I remember the first episode he was in, talking to him before it, and then calling him afterward and just saying, it was really good. He's done some low budget films in between there and everything, but it became a great opportunity for him for acting parts and to get back into the Battlestar universe too, and to play something different than he did before. So, like, you never know what life's going to bring you. So where he was so let down by where it went to, and then through being the better person for it, it turned into a really good opportunity. At least,
and I
ended up enjoying the first 2 seasons of that show. I didn't think I would.
Yeah.
I was ready to hate it forever, but you know what? They had some that really drew me in, and like most fans, I have comments about how it ended. But hey, it'll bring the name back into the public, and I appreciate that I do think it brought a new respect for the show, where a lot of people always lumped it in with campy 70s sci-fi. So, yeah.
Right. And he played a great character too. Let's not forget that, right? His character was pretty, right? Yeah, that was something else. And he himself will talk about how his character was multi-leveled and multi-dimensional, and he was, there's different ways of seeing him for who he was portraying. Where he was this good guy that did things that he believed had to be done for the greater good. I was all for, man. I was in his corner the whole way. So yeah, like you said, the ending was definitely a letdown. Nobody can deny that. Definitely a couple of seasons that were tremendous. And then I know, Chris, the spin-off Caprica was a whole other ball of wax.
I really think that's really undersung. I don't know if that's the right way of saying that. It's not talked as much as the Battlestar Galactica 2004 Ron Moore version, but Caprica was a really good storyline and a really good show. But
I think so.
We do have some more. We'll have some more information on the Great War of Magellan, because we will have a special guest in a couple of weeks. We're working on finalizing the date.
Now I want to know who it is.
Do you think you know who it is?
I don't know. No, I don't know. Yeah, but I'm just curious.
So, he'll be coming on shortly, a couple more weeks, finalizing the pieces of that.
But basically, we're gonna continue, I think, the theme of a tribute to Richard Hatch, right? And so we're going to I guess hem that all into this idea of doing a tribute, which we want to keep alive. So, Dave, you're always welcome to come back and contribute. And we definitely going to have another tribute later in the year. We're going to have one for Glenn Larson.
Yes.
So that'll be literally later towards the end of this year. So as these tributes come up, or as these events come up, some should be celebrations. Other ones will be tributes. But nonetheless, we'll be involved with the bigger picture of Battlestar Galactica, and we have a couple of others. We have a New York Times national bestseller that's going to be with us that we're going to be announcing later, who's involved with Battlestar Galactica and some of the biggest franchises, science fiction franchises around. So he's coming onto the show. We have a whole bunch of others that are going to be with us. And so, Richard Hatch, we miss you. We thank you for all, being who you were and inspiring us to continue. Dave, thank you for sharing your stories and your experiences and the material. And those interviews, I know that the fans, if they haven't watched them, are really going to enjoy them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, Chris, I kind of said my piece, but I know that you might have a couple of other things to say.
No, we're pretty good. I do think that if it wasn't for Richard, we wouldn't be this far to begin with. We'd still have we still have a fandom, but I don't think it'd be as big as it is. And especially with the new Galactica, which brought in new blood. I think another Galactica that's coming out, show, as well as a movie. Hopefully we're hoping that Ksberg makes the movie more along the lines of the original and not the 2004, but we do know the episodes will be kind of a 2004 spinoff. But there were so many, but you have to look at this. There's a show that had one season that inspired another show, but didn't get made. So we're talking to the DeSanto. So the DeSanto version, ready to film, didn't get done. Then we have the Second Coming. Then we get the Ron Moore version. I'm probably missing something in there somewhere. And now we have Caprica. We have all these different spinoffs from a show that ran one season. One tiny little season, and the story is so good, and the actors were so good that they inspired the fans to keep the fleet going. So I think that says something about the actor Richard Hatch. I guess entrepreneur would be another one, because he put his own money into these things. His drive and his caring helped move these along and gotten to the point where we're at now. So, and I think we'll be getting more fans here shortly.
Yeah, and I was thinking that today too. Like, we have gone back to serials from Flash Gordon to Buck Rogers, and we've seen different incarnations of those, and we'll certainly come back again. But those all started from an idea at some origin point. So Battlestar started in '78, and it will be very interesting to see, is that now set in that mythology that it will be something that carries on and then comes back, as they're talking about a new Buck Rogers incarnation taking place. So I kind of think with the mythology and how it captures people's imagination, it's something that will probably cycle through and come back again in some way, probably long after we're gone or something. So, which is nice. Yeah, I'm glad
it lives on.
For whatever reason, whatever sparked my interest and excitement in that story, like I said, for one season, it stuck with other people too. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
So I went ahead and pasted a link to your YouTube site in the chat. So if anybody wants to head to the YouTube site, that's where it's at.
You beat me to it.
I beat you there. Ha!
Yeah, you did. Ha ha. Ray,
second
Eric,
brain ruin.
That's right. Mel and John Van Gostein, thanks for tuning in, guys. So just want to throw those names up. They came in on live. They've been on for a little bit. So just want to make sure we We recognize our fans that are with us live. I'm sure there's a few others. I hope I didn't miss anyone that was on. But thanks for joining us. And yeah, so
Thanks for all
like
those
I was
people who
saying,
shared their photos.
yeah, big
And their
thank you
stories.
to all you guys. So listen, this won't be the first, won't be the last tribute.
Right.
Unfortunately, no, there's others, and like I said, Glenn A. Larson, we're gonna do a major tribute to him later in the year. And as these things come up, we'll be doing them. And let's not forget that we have the chapter versus episode. We're gonna be finishing that up, and then
Next week?
we're gonna be taking
Oh, not
a whole bunch
finishing
of
it
other
up, but-
projects. other projects coming
Yes.
up. We have the trivias and all the other things coming up. So
That's we've got a lot of cool things coming up. This was a kind of a somber, reflective show. It's not like our normal, but it's important that we remember someone that is no longer with us and the things that he did to inspire us to do what we do now. So
Kind of
thank
good
you.
memories.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, it's somber to remember. I remember the next morning in 2017 when I was watching the news and I saw the announcement come up. I'm like, well, they mean the Richard Hatch from the show Survivor, right? It's because it can't be. And then I saw
Gosh.
and it started me
I
thinking
know.
of everything.
Not him.
But one last story, which was a fun thing, Richard, because again, as he would talk to people and everything was always upbeat and energetic, and he just loved everybody in the community of sci-fi conventions and everything. And it was one of the ones in Columbus, Ohio, and it was in the evening. Then there was a party up in someone's room, and everybody's there relaxing, nothing strange going. So I remember sitting on the couch, talking with people. Richard's next to me, and then three women in Klingon costumes come up, and they say Captain Apollo, and then they flash what might normally be in, say, New Orleans, you would do for beads or something. This is for you. And I'm sitting there like, I don't believe what I'm seeing right now. And I'm like, and how does he handle this? And he just stood up, and then they just did it quickly. And he's like, ladies, I love you. And he embraced them. And I just laughed. I'm like, this is one of the most unique things I've ever imagined I would be in. It's like, he just had so much fun with it. And it was great to talk to him. He was a creative person and a caring person. So yeah, I was, when I heard that he passed away, I was saddened, but it made me think of all the few good times I got to have with him. And there's so many people that know him way better than I do.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight and sharing your the stories as well as your artwork and the work that you did on the Great War of Magellan with him. So we'll be getting more information on the Great War of Magellan here probably in the middle of March. We're looking at Mr. Weirhan will be on. One of the main individuals that were behind that show. So
very cool.
Oh yeah.
And with that, Pete, you got any other words you want to partake onto the group here before we?
Pretty much, Stephen. Thanks for tuning in, and it's all good. Looking forward to our next show this Thursday, of course. We'll be broadcasting again live on Facebook. So we invite everybody to come on back. You know what time it is. It's 8:00 Eastern Standard Time here on Facebook. IFB Interfleet Broadcasting. We're gonna actually do our book, and we'll show you some other interesting tidbits that are going on. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, Interfleet Broadcasting, our Facebook, and don't forget to give us those likes. So that we can grow and push the platform over into some other bigger and better things. And stay tuned, because we're going to have some other fun, and then, like I said earlier, Dave, you are always welcome. I hope we can turn to you from time to time. And, you're a fan like us. So, we're happy to have you whenever you can. We'll reach out, and don't be a stranger.
Sounds good. Just let me know.
All right, everybody. With that, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Don't forget to tune in Thursday. We'll have another show there. We have shows every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And normally we have special shows like this one tonight was mainly because today was a day that Richard left us. So, but he left us with a mission to keep the faith, and we're doing that. So y'all keep the faith. Pete, you got any closing words?
No, just stay safe, everyone. And hopefully there's better times coming, but stay tuned, and we'll do our best to entertain you guys, and bring you some Battlestar Galactica and other sci-fi, and you'll see we got some good stuff. We won't let you down. And again, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Richard Hatch, wherever you may be, may your memory be eternal. Rest in peace. And Dave, thanks for coming on. Do you have any last words?
No, I think I said it all. Should be good. But thanks. This has been great.
All right. Y'all take care. We will see you Thursday at 8 o'clock. Take care.
Take care.